Here we are.
Yeah, what's up, guys? So it is 9:15, 9:17 on a Friday night, just before a holiday weekend, and I'm at my in-laws. The lighting isn't so good. The internet connection is pretty terrible. I think I might look a little fuzzy. Um, Green walls. Yeah, it's good. I actually I actually, there's some interesting stuff I wanted to even say kind of about this moment, but how'd your day go?
My day was good. Very busy. I mentioned in the last show, my son turned 1 today, so we had a little birthday party this morning. My in-laws are in town, and my aunt and uncle came in, or in town for something else. And then my parents live here, so we kind of all got together in the morning, and then I had a ton of work to do, so I went to the office in the afternoon, and
Oh man,
it's been pretty busy. Yeah, but good.
cool.
Then I cleaned the garage out with my father-in-law, who was great and super on top of that, which is great. And so it's fun. Good day.
Oh my gosh, that is a lot of stuff. I don't think I could take on
Yeah.
like a chore like cleaning the garage on a birthday day.
It was just happening. So I jumped in.
That's awesome.
And now I'm in the kitchen because my wife's mom is staying in the room next to my office and she's sleeping, so I can't talk loud. So kitchen it is.
That's awesome.
All right.
So like this is like a really we've been doing these episodes now. It's been 2 weeks, and like we're still like fighting about not fighting you and me, but like fighting like the elements of just like doing something like this. Like here's real life where like like I'm at my in-laws, we want to do a chat like this, and it's like difficult. You have to conquer like work and home and to get something like this done. People are constantly like, and I felt like this too for years, like I want to blog more. I want to like put out more content, like podcasts or whatever, and like try and create some of this stuff. And it's like we all want like this perfection. And another thing I think that like challenges us is like we don't think we've achieved like good enough stuff to be able to like tell people this stuff. There's this really neat moment in like, did you watch Mad Men at all when it was on, or have you watched Mad Men?
I've never seen Mad Men, which is something I should see because I love advertising and I love that era. I just never watched it.
I think you dig it. I mean, it's obviously this dramatized version of it, but there's some really interesting moments of just kind of like clarity. And obviously it's still kind of fictional and fake when it comes to like the advertising, but there's some really interesting moments when it comes to advertising. There's this really great moment where there's I think it was in the first season, like all the cigarette companies are freaking out because I think it was like, even like the first episode, it was like all about like the cigarette tobacco companies. There was like a, who was Lucky Strike was the big tobacco client of Don Draper's, of the main character's, ad agency. And they were freaking out because I believe like it was like in the early 60s when the Attorney General came out and said, is it the Attorney General? No, what's the main physician, whatever, basically doctors were kind of coming out now and finally saying like cigarettes kill you, cigarettes give you cancer. And so like cigarette companies were freaking out and going to their ad agencies and saying like, what do we do? And so this was a fictional moment, but something I think that there's some truth to it still that you can take from it, which was like, in the end, Lucky Strike came out with an ad campaign then in the early 60s that was like, it's toasted. And if you watch this episode of Mad Men, it's like the first or second episode. It's like they were trying to come up with this kind of ad campaign. Like, what do we say when everybody? The only thing we have to say is like, like it's going to kill you, I guess. Like maybe still try our product. And like the Don Draper, the main character, was like, look, like, tell me about how your product is made. And they, we're going through this process and like we toast the tobacco, and he's like, that's perfect. He's like, it's toasted. And it was like this weird moment because like the tobacco company also comes back to Don. They're like, but we all toast our tobacco. All the companies toast it. And Don's comeback to this was like, the main character's comeback was like, that's true, but no one's talking about that. No one's doing that. Like, that's fine if you all do it, but you're the only one who's actually gonna be talking about it. Everybody else is gonna be worried about the dealing with what's going on with the doctors right now, you guys are going to be the only ones who are actually talking about how the product is made. And it was just this like really nice moment of like clarity, I think, for them fictionally, but that's exactly what I think their campaign was back then, was like, or their tagline was like, it's toasted. I don't know, it was this nice moment of kind of even clarity, I think, for me, and I bring it up to a lot of other people, and they kind of reach this kind of moment where they kind of realize like there's a lot of stuff for us to talk about. It doesn't matter if like I'm at my in-laws or you're in your kitchen. Like I can tell you there's not another project management or CRM company that is having a chat right now about building a product or marketing something from a video conference at their in-laws or someone's kitchen right now.
Yeah.
But
I think it's so true. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah, go.
Yeah. I think the thing that you forget is like things are certain things, like you've had an experience or certain things, and you just assume everybody knows those things. And sometimes when I write something on our blog, I almost feel silly talking about it because I'm like, isn't this obvious? But it's not to someone who hasn't had that experience yet. And the point you're making with the tobacco thing is that, yeah, all the other tobacco companies toast their tobacco, but nobody knew that until, and I don't even know if it matters, but like it sounds appealing. And even though everyone was doing it, one brand in this, in this show, of course, said, we're going to tell people about it. And so all of a sudden now, even though everyone does it, it's special to this particular brand. And that eliminates the opportunity for other brands to talk about it, probably because it's like, well, now we're just me too. So even though everyone did it, now someone owned it.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think that's a lot of like, when we wrote Rework and Getting Real and Remote, these aren't all original ideas that we have in the book. They're ideas we believe in, that we've sort of thought about over the past 10 years and whatever. But a lot of people read the book and they'll say, what's interesting is they'll read the book and they'll say, I learned nothing new in this book, but I loved it because it's how I work. And everyone tells me that I'm crazy to work this way. Everyone tells me that I need to go for the big exit. I need to raise the money. I need to be a big, big, big business. And I've been telling people for years, no, you don't have to be. And now I am validated by this book that says, no, you don't have to be. So even though I didn't learn anything new, because it kind of reaffirms what I already know, it gives me power because I realize I'm not alone. I'm not the only one out there who thinks this way and believes this way. And so even though like there's thousands and thousands of companies who work the way we work, and most of them are like this, actually. Most people in the tech world, they're outliers. Most companies work by trying to be profitable and stay in business, and not try and sell out.
Yeah.
It takes, sometimes you just have to put those things together in a way that, even though it's common, by giving people something to rally around, they'll then take up that cause for you. And these are all tangentially related ideas, but it's still about this thing that like, this is happening, this is going on, and who's going to do it? Even though everyone's doing it, who's going to talk about it? And I think that's hopefully what we're trying to do here is shed some light on some of the things that the project managers and product owners and product people, business owners have to deal with, or are dealing with, or aren't sure how to deal with. And if we can shed some light on some of those things, then hopefully it'll be useful for them, even if they're already dealing with these things already.
Yeah. There's another great example. Stack Overflow it kind of comes up to, again, kind of tangentially related, but like Stack Overflow is this like collection of people talking about kind of the obvious, of a lot of obvious questions, but everybody, some beginner or some even at all levels is going to have one of these questions. And these days, you ask a programming question, you end up on this website called stackoverflow.com these days. It's like a big, forum, a question and answer site for a lot of technical problems. But if you are starting, some kind of programming in PHP or Ruby or whatever, someone is probably answering and asking your question also on Stack Overflow. And it's a really great example of like, you think this stuff has all been done and talked about, but it's like it's
always someone's first day.
Exactly.
It's always someone's first day.
Right.
And I looked at Stack Overflow last night because I was working on I haven't touched some Ruby code in a long time, and like I wasn't sure how to do this simple condition. Like it was embarrassingly simple. Like, how do I do this? And I just did a quick search, found on Stack Overflow, and a beginner just like me had to ask the question, and someone came in and gave them an answer, and it was uploaded like 240 times, so you trust the answer.
Yep.
And no one is being condescending to beginners. They're just like, yeah, you did. I didn't know this at one point either, but here's how you do that. And it's just a wonderful feeling to be able to help someone that way.
Yeah. And so all of this stuff we're talking about is like this great reminder of like, you know, put your stuff out there. Like, stop worrying about like you don't have anything original, or you don't feel advanced enough, because there's always going to be someone who's less advanced than you. There's going to be people who haven't heard these messages before that you think everyone else has heard and read about. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, another great example.
So let's get to product stuff.
Sure.
I wrote something up today. Something happened today that reminded me, although it happened for years and years and years. I've done it myself. Something came up today that reminded me to write this post. I wrote this post about putting on your shipping goggles, is what I called it, which is that what I find is that when you're getting close to shipping something, you've got to train yourself to begin to ignore little things that simply just don't matter enough to deal with. So there's always there's a huge collection of things you've got to deal with before you ship a product. And I think when you get really close, let's call it within weeks, right? It's time to stop nitpicking things that just are fine. They're fine. Like a link style or a text style or bold versus this. Like, yeah, yes, it absolutely could be better, but it's not going to hurt the product at all if it is the way it is for launch. And then post-launch, we can always come back to these things later if we choose to. But what I found is that there's a tendency for people to not let up on the by the way, and I want to just be clear, nitpicking is actually a good thing to know how to do, and because it means you're paying attention to little details, and that is a good skill. But you've got to know when to let up on it, when to say, I would have brought this up 3 months ago because we had a lot more time to mess with these things. But now, like, if I bring it up now, I'm just going to distract people. And also, what the other problem with nitpicking is that nitpicking attracts a crowd, and that someone nitpicks this, and then someone nitpicks this, and then 3 people jump in and give their opinions, and then someone else gives their opinions. And again, not a bad thing at certain times, but it does become a bad thing at a certain point. And so, and there's no hard facts about exactly when that point is. It's more of a feeling. But I think it's an important thing to watch for and to tamp down on when other people aren't paying attention to that reality. And it does come down to experience and having done something a lot of times and realize, you know what, this is not worth picking on right now. We'll pick on it later if it needs to be picked on, but there's a lot of other high value things we should be dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And also the switching costs associated with picking on something that doesn't really need to be changed. And then, like, because it's being picked on and because people are talking about it, someone feels obligated to change it, which means they have to stop doing what they're doing, mentally switch over to do this little thing, commit it, deploy it, or QA it. It's like, it's just, these things balloon and spiral out of control. So anyway, I wrote this up today. And but just to be clear, like, I find myself doing this too. Like, it's not something you ever totally master. But it's just something to be aware of, that there's a time and a place when the attention to that level of detail should melt away, and you should be focused on the bigger picture stuff for launch. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had that experience?
Absolutely. Actually, so like, I've been actually chewing on this same kind of idea, a slightly different angle, but I've actually got, I'll explain. So 2 things. One is this: when I was a kid, I remember it was like 1st grade, I think. And it was like I think we were going over phonics, right? That was like a thing, I think, right? In 1st grade, phonics, like learning to like talk, right? Or
Yep.
read and write words and whatever. And I remember this moment. It was like 1st grade. And it was, the word was something like car. You were supposed to draw a car. And I remember drawing a car, but I got so involved in the details of trying to draw the inside of the engine compartment of the car. I was actually trying to draw an engine and like the axles of the wheels. And then it was like, I couldn't get this done. I was stuck. And so I went to the teacher and I'm like, what is happening? I don't know how to do this. And she, was like, look, you're trying to draw the outside of a car. And again, like I can't remember the discussion with my first grade teacher, but it was like I had this realization that like I didn't have to spend time on the details right now of the inside of the car. That wasn't the job right now. The job was to like create this like picture of the outside of the car. And that has always stuck with me, that I was trying to do that, and I got stuck on it when I was a kid. I actually just read a book. I've been reading this book over the past week about, it's something called like, I'll share it in a comment on the YouTube video of this thing, but it's called something like super minds or something like that. And it's this concept of studying savants who are, who come up with their savantness, their in some kind of like brain superpower from like an accident, right? So like Malcolm Gladwell, everybody's familiar now with like the 10,000 hour rule. But there are certain people who don't need 10,000 hours to achieve greatness for some reason. Like, why is that? And so these psychologists and neurologists are studying people with like brains that are like, how does someone who's never played music before get a brain injury and start playing beautiful Mozart? That didn't take 10,000 hours. We're like, what's going on there? And so certain studies now, these scientists, this one guy who's written this book especially, has been working with people like who have, you know, brain injuries that express some kind of savant aptitude at some kind of, you know, thing like playing music or drawing. And, you know, looking at MRIs and images of their brain, what they're starting to kind of see of like someone who can like draw really well is they are able to turn off like the left side, the left hemisphere of their brain that is like trying to, it's trying to interpret everything that they're trying to draw. So people who suck at drawing, their left hemisphere is constantly trying to interpret what they're drawing. And it's spending a lot of time trying to be like, you're drawing this and this, and you're trying to bring in all of these interpretations of it and this history of it. But like the people who are really good at drawing from these brain injuries are often like their left hemispheres become damaged, and they're drawing not from like rationalizations, and they're not drawing from all this previous history. They're drawing just simply from a visualization of what they see in the world. And so there's another experiment people have done in which people who they took a bunch of people, they asked them to draw a picture. They didn't do very well. You know, they looked at a picture and they drew it. And they didn't do very well. They ended up asking them to turn the picture upside down and draw that. And they did remarkably better. By turning the picture upside down, they turned off their brains, like they hacked their brain basically to like say like, don't interpret this like you're looking at an upside down person or upside down house. Like just draw the lines that you see. Don't worry about like knowing that it's a house or knowing that it's a person. And I feel like that's related to kind of what you're saying. Like when we're starting to get into this stuff, we get into like these details because our brain just like is focused on like all of the details inside the car. And like, what does this mean? Like that I'm making a to-do list or messaging app, like these details have to be perfect. When you're finally launching an app, or you're finally like giving someone like really new superpower features of an app, like the goal is really the higher level stuff. Like we need to give them like these new abilities they've never had before, like or simply like launching this product, getting it in people's hands that they don't have something like this before. And the details can come later, or there's another phase of development. Like it's not always the right time to be in that level of detail, like drawing the carburetor when that's not the job right now. But our brains tend to, I think, are inclined to do that because of our desire to like, I don't know, rationalize all the details or try and understand all the details of something. I don't know. It's interesting. I think as humans we do it, but you're right. Like we have to learn when not to do it.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you do want to do that, because if you're probably drawing a house, if you're an architect and you're putting a house together, like, and it needs to be extremely specific at that particular moment, like you want to do those details. You got to get that stuff right. Tolerances matter, all that stuff. But if you're just like roughly sketching and broadly brainstorming or whatever, this is actually not really a great example, but you just got to know there's different resolutions to product decisions, and they depend on there's a lot of variables, and one of those is time left, basically. Where if you have less time, I kind of feel like this is totally I often come with the wrong analogies, but I feel like well, actually I'm not even going to use this one because it doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to skip that one. It's like a 9:30 p.m. analogy that is going nowhere. Anyway, Yeah, there's a time where you just gotta let up and focus on the bigger picture and go, yeah, I think this could be better. This could be this type of control versus that type of controller, this type of select thing versus this type of radio button. Like, I don't know, it could be, should the radio button be round or square? I don't know. I like it round, but square is clear. It doesn't really matter because that's not going to make or break the product. What's going to make or break the product is the fact that you can do it at all. And if you can do it at all, people figure out the little things, and some people might be bothered by the shape and may not. Doesn't matter. We can always worry about that stuff later. So anyway, it's a real skill to develop over time. It reminds me too, kind of what you were talking about of when I'm not a very good drummer, but I've been playing drums for a little bit. And when I just play, I don't know how to explain, but when I just play, I play better than when I start thinking about how I'm playing. The moment I start thinking about the rhythm or the what my right hand should be doing versus my left foot or whatever, or when I start thinking about the beats per minute, like I start thinking, I screw up every time. I screw up because then I start measuring. And this actually reminds me a lot of and I just stopped flowing. And this reminds me a lot actually of when I speak. So I used to go, I do public speaking, right? And I used to practice the heck out of my presentations. And I found and then I just decided one day that I just wanted to try not to practice at all and just go up on stage and talk from the head and the heart about a topic. And I felt like I did such a much better job when I didn't prepare. And the reason why is because when I prepared so thoroughly, all I was doing was reciting. And I was thinking about the next thing I was supposed to say. And there was like a script in my head, and I could get thrown off by any small little thing. And then I wasn't really sharing. I was just repeating. And the moment I stopped preparing so much, worrying about all those little details about the sentence and the structure and the words I was going to use and what order I was going to go in, I just started talking. It flowed much better and was much more natural. And I kind of feel like we're drawing some strange parallels here. These aren't quite parallels, but it is about like what level of detail is required at the moment, and actually spending too much time on the wrong details, the wrong time. There's a significant impact on that. And I've seen this over and over where someone says a little thing about this little thing because they aesthetically don't like it or whatever, and then there's like a pile on, and it is what it is. Like, we all have opinions, but you got to remember the cost of sharing that at a specific moment, given how much time is left on something and who's around and what it's going to lead to. So it's just about a little bit of awareness, I guess. That just takes time to develop.
Yeah. I mean, no, and I think like what you're saying, I mean, I think even the analogy with speaking is like perfect still. It's like some of us like to be big picture thinkers. Some of us really like to get into details, but I feel like we all have to actually be better at both and know when to switch gears. I mean, you've actually been using this gear analogy a lot. It's like, I think that's actually like where it's at. It's like, there's certain moments when you do need to get into the details. Then you have to learn when to turn it off, because it's like, it's not time now anymore for that. Like, you've got to get a launch done or the big picture. Like, I really like how you do the abstract drawings of features, like, the stuff you've even been putting up on like the on Signal versus Noise right now about, and I know what that stuff now looks like in the next version of Basecamp, but like, I don't think enough people do drawings like that when they're starting to think about features. Like, they start immediately going into like PDFs and illustrations or mocks of like, the actual button and where it's going to be placed. And it's just like, it's not time for that right now. We're still trying to think big picture about like, what does this feature even do? Or like, what's the job that it does? And it doesn't, we don't give a shit about like the color and the font of the button right now. Like, we need the big thought. And it's like, it's good enough that it's just like broad strokes with a Sharpie marker, or I think you use GoodNotes or something. And it's just like, at that moment in time, that is like the perfect level of fidelity. Like, you need to be at that level, not the details. And yeah, people need to get better at switching back and forth.
I think it's an important topic. I'd like to hit more on it another call too. It's kind of hard to explain because I actually kind of feel like an asshole talking about it. But I don't want to feel that way because I don't mean it that way. But like when I would tell someone like today, I'm like, hey, we gotta stop talking about this. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, this could be better, but it just doesn't matter. There's other things we need to do. And like, I kind of hate those moments when I do that, but I also feel like that's my responsibility at a certain time to say like, enough of this discussion. it's not going to get us anywhere better in the big picture with the product, and not even in the small picture, because it's inconsequential how this particular tiny thing looks. I agree that there's probably maybe a better representation of it, but doesn't matter. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So I always just, I feel like an asshole around it, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm actually struggling with this too, man. Like, we'll talk about it more, but like we're about to. I've been fooling with this concept in Highrise of sending bulk email. I'd like Highrise to send bulk email, and I've actually got this built, and I've been doing it for a while. But I put out some kind of early like prototypes of like what I was doing. And some of the feedback that I was getting was like, this is inelegant the way you've kind of developed it, or not even developed, the way you've designed it. And it's like, it may be, but like in order to make it more elegant, the way we kind of envision the best perfect picture of it, there's a whole lot more that we need to do and put in place before we give this like really awesome superpower to like our users who've been asking for this ability to send bulk email. Like, you know, we get dozens and dozens of messages to asking for this type of thing a week. Like, we need to give them this thing that they're asking for. I think they're gonna be super happy. It doesn't matter if like it's not the perfect implementation, but I struggle too, because it's like, I know it could be better. I know it can be cleaner. I know it can be a little, but there's a lot more stuff that we need to also do to like, you know, make that better. And if it's hard to show without kind of screenshots, kind of like where some of our limitations are there, but I get it. I'm with you there too.
Yeah, it's tough. We have a couple minutes left. I actually want to throw sort of a plug-in for a product that I think is really good. You mentioned earlier is this thing called GoodNotes. I've found, so there's GoodNotes is a I don't even know how to explain it. It's a note-taking tool on the iPad, I think on the iPhone too, but it's like a sketching app. Like, you don't type the notes, you write the notes, or you draw shapes or whatever, right? It's like paper, or it's like I forget all the other, there's so many drawing tools, right? Penultimate, things like that. But I don't know who's behind this thing. I think it's like one guy. Maybe it's a small team. But anyway, it is so well executed for what it does. It's really inspiring. There's a lot of drawing tools out there, but whoever made this tool understands exactly who should be using it and why they should be using it, and the things they would need at the very moment. So like, it's a sketching tool. The ink flows beautifully. You can, one of the really cool things is there's a lasso tool, so you can move things around. But what's really awesome is you don't have to be perfect with the shape. The lasso tool, all you have to do is like cross. All you have to do is cross it, and it's selected. Like, the whole thing is then selected. So you can draw like a super raggedy thing, and it just selects everything within the bounds. But instead of it selecting just the stuff within the bounds, it selects everything attached to it as well. So point is, it's kind of a hard thing. I'll show you guys sometime. We'll do screen sharing. But it's such an elegant solution to a problem that you don't need to be accurate with the tool. You can just, it knows what you're trying to do, and then you can do it, and you can quickly resize stuff, and it makes it all smooth when you resize it. There's when you write text, there's an option to zoom up the box, but like actually gives you, it's just elegant the way it works. And as you write, it moves the page so you can keep writing. So you don't have to like stop at the edge and move it yourself. It's like really thoughtfully done. The moving, copying, resizing, editing, notebooks, insert pages, all this stuff is so thoughtfully put together. The product on the surface, if you looked at it the first time, you'd be like, this is like kind of clunky and really awkward and strange and goes against certain behaviors that you might expect. But that's the first reaction. And when you start using it, you realize, wow, this person really thought about how you really want to use something. And I'm coming back to this lasso tool again, but the lasso tool is so unique. I've never seen another one that works this way. And the first time you use it, you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted it to do. Perfect. This is totally it. Now I totally get it. And it's so well done. Anyway, I'd recommend checking it out. I don't know if it's free, or I think you pay for, I don't really know even what it is, but how much it costs, but it's so worth checking out. And I have no affiliation whatsoever. I just really think it's a fantastic tool, and I use it all the time for these sketches. It's great.
Awesome. Do you? Yeah. I know people love to hear the tools that we use. Are you using GoodNotes on an iPad or a mini iPad, or like how do you make your notes and sketches?
Yeah, I use a mini Retina iPad.
With a
with
some sort of stencil or a pen or whatever.
I use stylus. Yeah, I I think I use a Bamboo stylus. It's called Bamboo or something like that. I also use the Figure 53, the paper pencil it's called. I've used that. They're all kind of the same to me, to be honest. They're easier than using my finger. I haven't found one that's particularly great or not. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's better than my finger. That's what matters. I use a mini Retina iPad, but the moment Apple comes out with, if they come out with this rumored iPad Pro, like this 13-inch or 12.9-inch iPad, big, huge ass iPad, I will be a customer immediately. Because I don't use my iPad. Portability doesn't matter to me in terms of an iPad because they're all portable. Even a 12-inch iPad will be totally portable. It's thin and light and like the shape of basically a laptop screen without all the other back. So I'll buy that in a second. I'd love to have a little bit more screen real estate for this stuff. But I use that, and I use the stylus, and I use GoodNotes, and I've tried a bunch of tools, and GoodNotes just speaks to me. But I really appreciate the depth of the tool in the places that really matter. It's just exceptionally well built. I think it's great.
Cool.
Yeah. It's funny though. There's like one thing it doesn't do that really bugs me. When I share a sketch with somebody, I have to export. So the only export method, it's funny, they have like all these export methods, like export to Dropbox, export to Box, export to iCloud, export to PDF, email it to you, like all these things, right? I actually want to just text it to somebody, and if they don't have that. So it doesn't use the standard sharing panel, and it's just like, almost. So I end up like, I save it to Dropbox, because I want to drop it into Basecamp. So I save it to Dropbox, then I drag it into Basecamp. Like, it's just, I actually want to just text it to someone. It's a long story. Anyway, tiny thing, but you see, I'm nitpicking here. But anyway, great product.
But maybe they're but they're probably in the mode that they'd like need to like work on some of these details now that they've got a good product launched. Yeah.
It's awesome. I think it's version 4, GoodNotes. I really recommend anyone who has to sketch, but it's not only for sketching, but if you're sketching interface stuff, it's so well made. It's just really a great product to dig into. I do recommend it.
Cool.
Maybe we could talk about, I know people always want to know about tools. Maybe every show we can talk about like one tool.
Yeah.
That we're using, whatever. I don't know. Who knows? We'll run out of ideas quick there, but who knows?
I don't know. I could talk to you for hours more about this, but we've already crossed our 30 minutes deadline. So.
And it's Friday night. Well, I'm glad we could do this. I know it's inconvenient sort of time for both of us here, but I'm glad that we kept it going, that we haven't missed a show yet. Next week, we're not going to be on Monday because it's a holiday. It's a Labor Day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we're going to have a special guest on with us the whole week. A guy named Carlos Segura, who was actually one of my original partners in this business in 37 Signals, now Basecamp. But he now he was running a design firm for 20 plus years, and he's a very interesting guy. And so he's going to join us all week next week. We're going to try running with a guest and see how it goes.
That's awesome. Cool.
All right,
dude. Have an awesome weekend.
Have a good fun holiday weekend at the in-laws.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Enjoy the holiday weekend if you're celebrating. We will see you on Tuesday.
Okay. Later on.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.